was born in Johannesburg, in South Africa. Grew up in a really good family, really supportive family, surrounded by cricket and sport and sort of a really competitive environment. My dad played international cricket, coached international cricket. My brother played professionally, my uncle. So quite a sort of rich, sort of competitive sporting family. And then ended up going to one of the bigger all boys schools in South Africa, King Edward VII. And yeah, from there I finished my schooling and then came across to Durham as a young, fresh-faced 18-year-old. And I suppose try to forge my way within English cricket. And thankfully, I've been able to live my dream and play for England and play on an international stage in various venues around the world. But I mean, in and around it, there was some heartache of playing and opening the batting at the Riverside, which has its own challenges. But yeah, look, it's been a fantastic journey so far, and one that I think has made me the person I am today, having faced the adversity or the challenges of, say, moving country at 18, with no sort of, not no backing from your parents, but no support structure around you. And I think from that, I've ended up creating some of the best mates and some of the best relationships with people that were able to support me. So I'm still in touch with Del Benkenstein, who was going to come across to Lancashire this year and work with us. Obviously, he was, I think he was club captain the year before I arrived at Durham. But obviously, I was able to sort of connect with him, and it's amazing how these circles sort of go around. And he was going to now come and work with us as a group of players. Sort of, geez, it'll be seven or 8 years on.
So when you first moved over, we'll touch on that and that transition from South Africa to Durham. That's a bit from Joburg. That's a big move at 18. To do that on your own and take that step. Can you tell us about the environment that you walked into in the Durham Academy? And that academy, there's so many great players come out of that academy. In recent times, you can name them: Paul Collingwood, Steve Harmison, Graham Onions, Ben Stokes, yourself, Mark Stillman, Scott Borthwick. All these international cricketers coming out of that environment. Were there any?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool.
I think probably one of my first memories was arriving at the ground. And at Durham, you walk into the reception area and there's like a sort of go up a set of stairs and then back on yourself. And then you kind of go into an office, or you can go right and go into the change rooms. And I was just coming out of the office. I think I'd just signed my contract with the secretary at the time, Ellen, and kind of walked through all skittishly. And Stokesy, he would have only been a year older than me, but he felt like he was 10 years older than me at the time. He kind of burst through the door, kind of bravado, and he kind of went through, all right, mate, and walked through. And I think that might have actually been my first day having landed there. And John Windows picked me up at Durham train station. And so look, I mean, I've still got a lot of the connections from then. I still chat to John Windows every now and again. Obviously still very close with a lot of the Durham lads, but coming across, it was hard. You spend a lot of time wondering if the decision you'd made is the right one, especially when things don't go well. So from a batting point of view, when things go nicely, obviously life feels good and you having good mates and all of it. But when things don't quite go the way you want them to or expect them to, that's where you start having those doubts of, have I made the right call? Is all this worth it? All my family's on the other side of the world, but I'm here trying to forge a new life for myself. And is this actually what I want to do? But I couldn't have, I mean, the saying of you follow it couldn't ring more true with me and my situation, because the people of the Northeast actually were incredibly welcoming. They were incredibly sort of warm and inclusive of me. And not only the people from the Northeast, it was guys like Gareth Breeze, Callum Thorpe, Del Benkenstein, Ian Blackwell, like all of those guys that weren't necessarily born and bred Geordies or Mackems, but they were playing at Durham, and that inclusive sort of nature of the change room at that time just seemed to engulf everybody and just pull people in.
With that, obviously you've worked your way through the academy, second team, first team, up into the Lions and international cricket. What have those transitions been like between those different environments, but also the different levels of the game for you?
Look, the different levels, obviously you have step up. So once you play academy cricket, you're obviously playing in the leagues. That has its own challenges. I still hate batting on league wickets. I remember facing, I think his name's Davey Heim, who's played for Tynemouth. And it's just, you have nightmares because it's just, the wicket's slow. You can't hit the ball because every time you hit it, like, there's just straight fields. And like, that has its own set of challenges and anxieties. But then as you move up, you play second team cricket, obviously you have the odd professional guy maybe coming back from injury or trying to prove a point. First team cricket, obviously it's first class cricket, it's professional cricket, it's as sort of tough as the game gets. And then you go into national cricket, which is a step up again, and that's like facing the best bowler in a county attack all day, every day. So with every step, there's a step up in intensity of performance, in scrutiny, in your own sort of analysis of your game. And it's about finding mechanisms and ways to cope with it. For me, it doesn't only apply to cricket. So for me, it applies to life as well. If you move up a corporate ladder, so if you move into a company and you start off at the bottom, and as you work up, you're going to face more and more scrutiny about your performance, the company's performance, your controllables and all the rest of it. And it's about finding ways to, one, cope with it, and then two, perform better under that pressure.
Talking about pressure, we just talk about captaincy, and we talk about England Lions and life under Andy Flower.
Yeah.
Scary man.
Look, funny enough, I actually got off the phone with him yesterday, and incredibly hard man, incredibly honest, blunt at times, tells you what he thinks, but in the same respect, he's always got your best interest at heart. And if he's not coming hard at you, but if he's being honest with you and putting his energy and time and love into you, yes, that may manifest itself in some weird ways. And I've not had clashes with him, but we've been fairly sort of honest and brutal with not each other, but with scenarios and games and all the rest of it. And you know, I've got the utmost respect for the man and what he wants you to achieve within the game, to the point where he's one of the first guys I'll ring, because that's how much I trust him. Yes, it comes with its own pressures in captaining the Lions. And I mean, I'll tell you a little scenario. We went to, we're in Jamaica at Sabina Park. And anyway, we batted first on a sort of sticky wicket. I lost my 10th toss in a row or something. So spin came on like the 10th over, and literally like it was impossible to play at times. Anyway, we got bowled out for 150. The wicket literally dried out and was like batting on the M1 for day 2 and a bit of day 3. Anyway, and then obviously because it's so wet, it goes wet to dry to bone dry dust within sort of 3 sessions. So obviously now we bat when it turns into an absolute sort of dust bowl, and we get rolled for 150 again, and we lost by an innings. I think it's the biggest loss of any England Lions team. I stand to be corrected, but I think it is. And and I'm sure you won't mind me telling you this, but he went around the room and like nailed every single person. Like, you did this, and like, but I was sat behind a wall. I was like, you couldn't see me, and I was like half giggling away, trying to hold my stuff together. But it was, the frustration that he had was out of, he just wants the team to do well. And if you are honest enough to have those tough conversations with him and sit down and have blunt conversations where, don't take it personally, it's about your game and it's about your development. That's where I think he has so much value to add. And I love him to bits. I mean, I rang him yesterday and I want him as one of my references for a university course I'm moving into. So look, I mean, that's from a guy that's so scary and nobody likes and all the rest of it. I've got that much respect for him.
Can we touch on that honesty?
Yeah, 100%.
Go back to that, and how much you sort of value it as a player, receiving feedback from a coach, and how that works, and how you might react to that, or may have reacted in the past and then learnt. You know, and then as a captain, how you then provide that feedback to the players, and any strategies and maybe a little bit of advice that you could give on giving that for players.
So for me, firstly, as a player, I think, again, the higher up the sort of tree you go in terms of international cricket, there's more voices. So there's a lot more people wanting to give advice and give their sort of opinion on your game and what you should do. And I think the biggest thing for me is having a person you trust. And whether that's yourself or whether it's Andy Flower or whoever it is, or John Windows, you call them and you go, look, this is what's being said. What do you think? How do you reckon I move forward? And then you come up with a game plan. I think it's important, especially as a batter, not to take things personally. Is it the red arrows that call themselves like plane 1 or plane 2?
Yeah.
So that concept for me, I've not used, but that idea of it's not Keaton Jennings, it's Keaton Jennings the batter. And almost separate that side, because otherwise you feel like you're bashing yourself and you're not good enough. And so you have that conversation with Keaton Jennings the batter. Okay, what's wrong with that? How do I improve that? What's good with that? And then move forward. It's not a personal bashing. It's actually my cricket and my skill I need to improve. And for me, that's quite key, being honest and at times brutal, but also forgiving with yourself when there are improvements to be made. But then also at times to be slightly ignorant when you go, things are okay, and I'm going to stick with this. And these are the people I trust say it's okay, so I'm going to move forward. As a captain,
split off your personality and your identity of self.
Yeah.
The batter and the cricketer isn't all of you. It's just one separate part of it that has become almost work.
100%. Well, it is work. At the end of the day, I get paid to go and score runs, and that's how I pay for a lovely 2-bed flat, and I'm able to have a beautiful coffee in the morning because that's my job. That is that's what I've got to do in order to put food in my mouth. And I can't take that personally. That's my efforts are good, my training's good, all the rest of it. But regardless of that, I'm still a person, and that's my coping mechanism. For a guy like, I don't know, for example, I don't know what his mechanisms are, but Stokesy might just go, you know what, no, take it on. This is me, all in one, blunt, and I'm going to go with this. So everybody has their own coping mechanism, but the quicker you find out what that is, that for me is essential. If you find that out as a 16-year-old, awesome. If you find it out as a 25-year-old, then you probably need to adapt more quickly.
Cool. So that leads on really nicely to what I wanted to discuss next, really, about how cricket can be such a tough game mentally. How do you personally deal with the ups and the downs, and will then lead on to pressure situations as well after that?
Yeah, 100%. Look, like for me, the last sort of, I suppose, 3 years really, since December 2016 has been a roller coaster of incredible highs, 100 on debut, to struggling to find runs, averaging, 10 or 12 or whatever it was at certain times. And that's it. To have those sort of discrepancies in performance are hard, and you need to find ways of coping. And for me, I really struggled, to be honest, for a long period of time. It was, I almost took it on myself and took it very personally. I'm quite a tense, sort of high-driven guy anyway. So the intensity of the international arena heightened that to the point where I would doubt what coffee I would make in the morning, because that's how much mental sort of strain I was taking. But my coping mechanisms at the moment, I delete Twitter. So I've still got my account, but I delete the app off my phone. I listen to a very small group of people from my cricket point of view. And generally I try and sort of engage myself and develop myself outside of cricket as much as I can, so that when I get to cricket, I can actually just enjoy it, and I can hit balls with freedom, and I can just enjoy the process of playing and competing without worrying about, am I going to be okay after cricket? Or there's just that added little bit of pressure to your play, where if you settled outside of cricket, then the cricket actually just becomes fun. And at the end of the day, when we were kids, that's why you played. You ran up in the back garden and bounced your little brother out, and because you want it to have fun, and that's what the game is actually about. And yes, like you say, it becomes work, but at essence, it's about having fun.
Keeping that childish edge and that little bit of fun sounds really, really key there for you at the level that you're working at.
Yeah, 100%. And it's for me. So my key words when I battle are compete, compete and watch the ball. So for me, that childish element and that fun factor comes from the competitiveness and winning that battle with you. So if you're the bowler, I want to compete with you, and I want to get over that battle and then try and move that process forward as much as I can. And competing doesn't mean hitting the ball, every ball for four. It's actually, this is quite a tough period for me now. It's 11 a.m., April 5th. Like I've just got to get through this. And if I can compete and get through that period, you know, I've won. And then we go again after lunch. So like you said, that childish, fun, competitive nature, actually keeping that in your game.
Brilliant. Right. So let's have a bit of a technical chat. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were back in the test team for Sri Lanka before this event where we're all locked down and we can't go anywhere. Congratulations on that, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
All the talk, media-wise and podcasts and people chatting, was about you coming back in and playing spin really well at the top of the order, which is so was key to England doing well in those spinning conditions. Coming from South Africa, not a natural environment to play spin well. I'm guessing that's been a bit of a big learning curve, right?
Yeah.
What are your key points on batting against spin? If you were to talk technically to a batter about things that you found that have worked for you, that somebody could go out there and try and maybe take on an experiment with themselves.
Yeah. So firstly, to come back at the whole sort of scenario, moving into that test series, I didn't read or listen to any podcasts, so I make a point when I know there's selection being spoken about, especially in the press. I love reading the Times. One of my morning routines are stick the TV on, have a cup of coffee, and I watch the news. And when I know there's test selection or I'm in and around, I mean, you get a gut feel of if you're in and around. I don't watch any of it. I stick to basic news and try and isolate. I mean, going to a place like Sri Lanka, India, that subcontinent feel, it's very different to playing spin in England. Generally in England, the ball will turn from the bowlers. That's where the ball will generally turn from. Where India, just where the ball lands, it seems to go, and it doesn't become different, but your precision of your foot movement and your game plans need to be a little bit more sharp. So for me personally, it's a combination of one, trying to manipulate the field, and then two, almost sticking to your strengths. And one of the biggest things that changed for me was the ability to sweep and reverse sweep, because then I found instead of having everybody in front, a man at 45, a man at square, and a man at deep point, and there became options for me to, one, get off strike, but two, score a boundary, instead of having two slips, short leg, man up. So you end up facing balls, and eventually one will spit at you and you nick it and you get out. Where now, because you've got the men back, you nick it and it's run past and you get a run. So that was that was one of the biggest things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with an attacking shot. It can be with defensive technique. And I think one of the biggest things that I found, especially working with Graham Thorpe and Andy Flower in Dubai in 2016, was excuse me, where you stand in the crease. There's I think it's about 1.5 meters that, I don't know, they call it the danger area or whatever it is. And I think like 85% of dismissals happen within that area. And it's about getting backwards of that area, so moving back towards stumps, getting that big transfer right back to allowing yourself time, or getting right forward and getting nearest to the pitch as you can. Not run down the wicket, but making sure that stride length is good and you make contact with the ball before it spins. And I think when you watch guys like Kohli, who's a fantastic player of spin, he's ball, or he's so quick to jump forward as he comes forward. for me. So those two keys, that making sure I get right back or right forward, and then the ability to sweep, has been my sort of two massive key points of playing spin.
You make it sound so simple. I think a lot of people try and overcomplicate it. You know,
Yeah.
and all these technical minutiae, you know, get as far forward, get as far back, never play from the crease, develop your sweep.
Yeah, look, and I mean, sweeping is not, I mean, a lot of the subcontinent guys don't sweep. So you'll see a lot more of them they try and play as much of the back foot as they can, and they play more with a sort of straight bat, or try and cut, or try and work the ball with the spin. But for me, it's not really, it didn't really fit with how I played. So it sounds very simple, but this is hours and hours and hours of hard work and sweeping and lunges in the gym just to get your legs strong, and broken bats from sweeping and hitting the floor. And I mean, to the point where, I put in hours of reverse sweeping, and because I'm right hand dominant, obviously that's my top hand. I feel like that reverse sweep becomes a stronger shot for me, for whatever reason. But practice it before my debut in Mumbai, and the net's not on the square in Mumbai. So obviously the test wicket's there, and there's sort of 2 or 3 strips, and then all the practice surfaces. So obviously you get a good feel of the bounce and all the rest of it, as you would in the test match. And I think I played about 15 reverse sweeps that day. And I don't know, I think I nailed 14 of them, like straight out the middle, bang. And then the one I didn't, I got a little top edge in the face. Anyway, test match special with 200,000, 100,000 odd followers, recorded that ball. So now you sit in your hotel room that night, they tweet out Jennings reverse sweeping before debut. And now obviously the reverse sweep is seen as this, what's the right word, taboo shot. And now suddenly I'm getting peppered. Why is he being picked? Playing reverse sweeps, not a test match cricketer, and all the rest of it. Now you doubt your biggest asset as a player, whether you should go and take that into a test match the next day. And I think that's where that intensity builds. And then you start doubting your play, your game plans, your practice, your methodology of how you're going to go about scoring runs. So yes, in essence, it's very simple, but all the sort of adding factors to what's actually going on, that's what makes it quite a sort of intricate, tough situation, especially in India as well, because it's 30 odd. I mean, Mumbai is like 35 degrees. It's 80% humidity. You've got 30,000 people in the stands. You turn around and Kohli's doing this, and literally the stands just erupt. Like, I remember batting with Cookie, and we got off to a good start. We were like 60 odd from naught or something, and the crowd went kind of dead. And might have been Jadeja, I think he was on, and Kohli turned his back to the game, literally, and did this to the crowd, and it just went ballistic. And I turned around, I just looked at Cookie, and I was like, what? And I promise you, it was surreal. And so it's those, now you get caught in that moment in how you go about playing the next ball, and the intensity of the smell, the smog, the just everything, the noise level. I mean, you go back to your hotel at the end of days playing, your ears ring. You know the feeling, I mean, a lot of your lads won't know yet. In a couple of years, they probably will. But when you go to a nightclub and you get home, your ears have got that like you sit in your hotel room and you're like, jeez, my ears are ringing just from the day's play and the noise and the whistling and the drums. And it's a surreal place to play.
It sounds all encompassing. It sounds amazing. Right. I don't want to keep you for too long. Right, so I've got 5 one-word answers, quick 5 questions to finish off. All right. So, one word or one player. Who's the quickest bowler you've faced?
Mark Wood.
Toughest opponent you played against?
James Anderson.
The best player you've played with?
Kumar Sangakkara.
Who's your cricket hero?
Michael Hussey.
Who's the longest in the shower?
Mark Wood.
Brilliant. Keaton, I just want to say a huge thank you very much for coming on and chatting to us today. It's been amazing and so privileged to be able to get your insights into into your technique and the way you go through everything.
Yeah, no worries. We love you to chat to you, buddy. Hopefully you stay well.